Sandra Carr is a government worker, a 64-year-old African-American woman who's studying for her PhD. She's on the street that runs out from the State House, where, until recently, the Confederate flag used to fly. Carr is thinking much further back.
We had to walk miles and miles to get to school while Caucasian children were in school buses throwing papers and stuff at us while we were trying to get to school.
South Carolina has been plagued by a series of racially charged events in the last months. The slaughter of 9 people at Bible study in Charleston, the police shooting of an unarmed black man in a northern suburb, the debate over the meaning of the flag. The present blends into Carr's past.
I didn't understand why they were telling my brothers, don't go to certain parts of the city or outside of the city, because they were afraid they weren't going to make it back home. I'm sorry.
Carr wipes away a tear.
It's better. It's a lot more to be done, but it's better.
Plenty of whitewaters agree. Corey Ruth was a saleswoman between jobs. She's out looking for an apartment for her son, Zach. She's careful to tell me she's no relation to Charleston shooter Dylan Ruth.
The only good thing that happened about that is South Carolina pulled together, and the blacks and the whites, and it didn't get any worse than it should have gotten.
I think it improved a lot. They took down the Confederate flag.
I didn't completely agree with that.
This is the context in which Hillary Clinton is campaigning. Race is unavoidable. These voters insist on knowing when things are going to change. Like this man at the Brooklyn Baptist Church in Columbia.
Well, we can't change lanes without being stopped. When people are getting shot down in the street, how will you address this issue? When, not if, when you become president of the United States.
Thank you. We first have to acknowledge and believe that Black Lives Matter. This is not
she
just
speaks slowly, but emphatically.
I also believe that economic inequality is a symptom of racism. It is not the only reason for racism. Racism is much deeper. It's much more in the fabric of how people think and feel and act.
She has specific solutions: body cameras, training, demilitarization of local police. As she goes on, she picks up steam.
And what is so really troubling is that if you compare statistics between white men and African American men, if they are stopped, if they are arrested, if they are charged, if they are convicted, if they are sentenced, there are clear, undeniable racial disparities. And so I think we have to admit this. We shouldn't try to gloss it over or pretend that it'll go away because we're just going to be nicer to each other.
Which is not the kind of direct talk we've heard in the past from Hillary Clinton. As a candidate for Senate in New York in 2000, she herself seemed to pretend that racism would go away if people were nicer to each other. It was the middle of another searing controversy over the police killing of an unarmed black man. Amadou Diallo had been shot 41 times in front of his home in the Soundview section of the Bronx. 4 police officers were charged, but were acquitted at trial. A week later, Clinton gave a speech at Manhattan's Riverside Church. She would not take sides.
We always hear about the police, but after all, the police are our police. And we have to demonstrate that we need not make the false choices that are put before us. We can choose both safer streets and mutual respect.
This was when Clinton's husband was so popular among African Americans, he was called the nation's first black president. Clinton won her Senate seat with a huge majority of the black vote, particularly among black women. By 2008, the stakes were even higher. She was running for president. She lost in Iowa but won in New Hampshire, and then came South Carolina. It was the first primary state with a sizable black population, and she was running against a black man. When he spoke movingly on America's race problem, she became defensive.
I would point to the fact that Dr. King's dream began to be realized when President Lyndon Johnson passed the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
It isn't enough just to dream, she was arguing. You have to know how to get things done. But it sounded like she was dismissing the nation's most revered civil rights leader.
The power of that dream became real in people's lives because we had a president who said, we're going to do it, and actually got it accomplished.
Clinton lost the South Carolina primary by a lot. Her husband dismissed Obama's victory, likening his win to Jesse Jackson's in 1988. South Carolina's influential black congressman, Jim Clyburn, publicly criticized the remarks. But today, many former Obama supporters in South Carolina have forgotten all this. Like Carlisle Steele, a defense attorney in Greenville, they just want answers. The more specific, the better.
I've been shocked over the last 40 years at the mass incarceration of young men, particularly young African-American men.
My plea is that we move forward to change the laws, change a lot of the discriminatory and unfair application of those laws. But then we're going to...
One of those laws, the Violent Crime Control Act of 1994, was passed by President Bill Clinton. Earlier this summer, the former president said he was sorry he signed it. In Greenville, a reporter asked Hillary Clinton if she was sorry, too.
Do you think you should apologize for the mass incarceration problem, and will you?
Well, I think that what my husband said is that we were facing different problems in the 80s and 90s, which I did.
She went on for a while about the high crime rates in those years.
Do you regret advocating for those laws?
You have to put things in context. I think that what was done then was done in response to a specific set of conditions that were crying out for action to be taken. And I think now, 20 years on, we can say some things worked and some things didn't work, and let's fix what didn't work.
A motto that, so far, she's also applying to her presidential campaign. For WNYC, I'm Andrea Bernstein.
Coming up, how new technology brings the best features of Frank Lloyd Wright's Falling Water to life for everyone, including those with mobility issues. That report coming up right after the newscast. Partly sunny skies expected for later. Isolated showers and thunderstorms still possible. It will be hot and humid again today. Highs will be in the lower 90s. Tonight, partly cloudy with lows in the lower 70s. And tomorrow, Wednesday, mostly sunny. Highs will be in the mid-80s.
WNYC support comes from Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, dedicated to offering support services and resources to people affected by cancer and their loved ones. Learn more at mskcc.org/morescience.
WNYC is the station that brings NPR News to New York City.
From NPR News in Washington, I'm Dave Mattingly. The Republican presidential candidates are preparing for Thursday's debate in Ohio. The top 10 in national polls will square off in a primetime debate led by Donald Trump. Ahead of Cleveland, more than a dozen GOP White House hopefuls took questions last night at a forum in New Hampshire. NPR's Don Gagne says it went by quickly.
14 people, a 2-hour event, and then 2 rounds. So they each get to get up on stage twice. And it feels like, lightning round doesn't describe it. It's like we're getting mini versions of their stump speeches.
Trump skipped the New Hampshire event. New Hampshire's representative to the Republican National Committee says they never envisioned 17 major GOP candidates when they organized that event. Myanmar is seeking international help after floods killed dozens of people and left thousands homeless. NPR's Anthony Kuhn reports the appeal marks a change for the government.
When Myanmar was devastated by Cyclone Nargis in 2008, the then-ruling military junta refused any international aid. The current administration has taken the opposite approach. Neighbors China and Thailand have already begun delivering aid. Myanmar remains one of Asia's poorest nations, and it's hard-pressed to cope with such a disaster by itself.
And Wall Street futures are lower this morning. I'm Dave Mattingly, NPR News in Washington.
I'm Richard Hake on WNYC in New York. Bronx residents are questioning why more has not been done to monitor cooling towers for the bacteria that causes Legionnaire's disease, which has now sickened at least 80 people and caused 7 deaths. Terrell Jones attended a town hall meeting with city officials last night. He says he's angry that the city did not put stronger measures in place after a separate outbreak back in January at the Co-op City development.
there was no follow-ups in the city for your other water towers. There was no relevant information given on the transmission of this bacteria. So look where we are today in August.
Maintaining cooling towers is the responsibility of building owners. Mayor de Blasio says that new legislation will be introduced this week to prevent future outbreaks. A second trial in the case of Eitan Pates will take place in February. A Manhattan judge set the date yesterday to retry Pedro Hernandez, the New Jersey man who confessed in 2012 to killing the 6-year-old boy after his disappearance in 1979. And a jury has decided the families of 2 men killed in a New York City construction crane collapse should get $48 million in punitive damages from the crane's owner. And the Long Island Railroad says service on the Port Jefferson line is temporarily suspended in both directions between Port Jeff and Huntington due to a downed tree and power lines west of Stony Brook. Crews are on their way to the scene of that. Partly sunny skies expected for later today. Isolated showers and thunderstorms still possible, especially this afternoon. It'll be hot today with highs in the lower 90s. This is WNYC.
At WNYC, we rely on listener support. But what exactly does that mean?
This is Ilya Meritz. I'm a reporter in the newsroom. To me, listener support is about reliability. I meet people all the time who say, oh my gosh, you work at WNYC? I love WNYC, and I rely on you. And it's really nice to be able to say back to them, we rely on you. It works. This station is growing and thriving thanks to you.
Show your support. Go to WNYC.org and click on Donate.
It's Morning Edition from NPR News. I'm Renee Montaigne.
And I'm David Green. Good morning. Falling Water is really an architectural masterpiece. The house in rural southwestern Pennsylvania is the work of Frank Lloyd Wright. People from all over the world come to visit it. The structure is built into a hillside, and the true marvel is how the house looks like it's hovering in the air over a waterfall. But what makes Falling Water so unique is exactly what makes it challenging for those who struggle with mobility. Erica Barris from member station WESA reports.
I'd like to welcome all of you to Falling Water.
Ruth Bachman is touring the first floor of Falling Water.
Two small doors that open in.
She admires the stone fireplace and built-in furniture while listening to the sound of the rushing waterfall. But that's as far as Bachman gets. Her wheelchair prevents her from seeing the rest of the house. Frank Lloyd Wright called it organic architecture, a style that blends a building into the natural environment. The house has 117 steps. Most of the doorways are too narrow for wheelchairs. Falling Water is a half-mile from the road, and not much can be done to modify it.
The building is the object.
That's Linda Wagner, director of Falling Water.
That's why we're there, is because of the architecture of the building. So there is no place to put an elevator in that building. There's no way to deal with it.
Which has left countless disabled visitors unable to tour the house. Until now.
Oh my. Oh my goodness, look at that. That's about the 5th round.
In the visitor center, Ruth Bachman watches a new, no glasses, narrated 3D video of Falling Water. The images are rounder and deeper than on a regular screen. The tour takes her into the room she couldn't access, lingers on one-of-a-kind architectural details, and transports her through the rocky terrain that surrounds the property.
I don't think a video takes the place of actual being. I really think you have to visit the place. But if you can't visit, I guess it's better than not.
The Falling Water video was shot by filmmaker Ken Love. He says this new technology brings the house's best features to life.
A lot of people question 3D in terms of what does it add to the storytelling. And for architecture, it adds a lot. It gives you this whole sense of scale and dimension.
And it could be an asset for others, even if they aren't disabled.
I want to see it all around.
Friends Mariko France and Kate Zayden are here with France's young daughters. Children have to be 6 to tour the house, which is full of original dishes and furnishings. So the group spent the morning walking the grounds. Now, over lunch, they're watching the video.
We didn't see her. No, it's because we weren't in there. I know, we weren't allowed. Well, you guys were.
Well, yeah. It's only in recent history that buildings have had to comply with disability laws. Brian Gokin, who works in preservation at the National Park Service, says honoring those requirements without compromising architecture is a challenge for historic homes such as Mount Vernon, Graceland, and falling water.
There should be full access for all Americans to be able to see and appreciate these properties. And we're also trying to ensure that what they're seeing is preserved and the historic characters of the property remains intact. 3D tours could help fill that void. Filmmaker Ken Love plans on creating a similar video for Kentuck Knob, another Frank Lloyd Wright house, and hopes videos such as this become the norm at historic houses all over the country and maybe even the world. For NPR News, I'm Erica Barris.
It's Morning Edition on WNYC. I'm Richard Hake. Good morning. The time right now is 6:50, currently 69 degrees. Marketplace Morning Report, that's coming up next. Later on Morning Edition, a huge legal battle is coming over the Obama administration's ambitious plan to address climate change. The coal industry has the most to lose and plans to take the fight to court. Then we'll hear a report on families who adopt foster kids who often need a lot of support. One program in Illinois is creating a community where foster families live near older adults who can lend a hand. And in parts of the world where many people do not have bank accounts or credit cards, it can be difficult to get a loan, but now researchers say cell phones can be used to determine credit worthiness. Those stories coming up in the next hour of Morning Edition right here on WNYC. The weather forecast for the New York City area does call for more hot conditions and humid conditions today. Highs will be in the lower 90s. Isolated showers and thunderstorms could pop up this afternoon. Tonight, partly cloudy. Lows will be in the lower 70s. And then tomorrow looks like a pretty nice day, mostly sunny with highs in the mid 80s. Once again, right now it is 69 degrees in New York City.